Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome to Exiting the First Cognition. Today I'm going to try and explain my difficulties understanding or groping things when you start your path on the second cognition. I know I may have touched on this before, but I reiterate on the thinking topic because it was something that was my greatest hindrance on this path. So let's go ahead and get into it. Yes, thinking was my main cognitive obstacle I had to work hard to overcome on this path, but I want to start off by saying thinking in itself isn't bad. It's how we think that can cause one's process to stagnate or hinder in whatever way. I really can't emphasize this strongly enough. Many of us start out allowing our thoughts to follow our programmed indoctrination habits, and that is what kept shooting me in the foot when I kept working to advance myself. For me, one major inhibitor was the rationalization process. Endel does go into this some, but I'm going to work on explaining this myself and how I experienced it in myself and how I had to overcome it. How this process worked against me was, while I gained an insight, clarity, or understanding on something that did progress my cognitive advancement, the rationalization process would kick in and it would either convince me that my insight or advancement was wrong, incorrect, or bad, or it would rationalize how I wanted the experience to be interpreted as. It would fit my insights into cognitive boxes and label them, and more often than not, this ego habit of rationalization would reclaim the power I had originally claimed in the first place, and it would put me back to square one again. I found in my experience, rationalization was closely tied to excuse making due to me feeling guilt and shame. In other words, this act stemmed from fear. As odd as it may sound, I realized I did this because I was afraid of the power I saw in myself. Bringers of the Dawn says this much better than I do when it says, "When you learn how to turn within to find answers, the self will speak. Usually you cannot hear because you are locked in behavioral patterns that you know you have to change but that you don't want to change because you don't know who you will be. In all honesty, you are afraid of yourselves. This is a very common thing. You are afraid you will not be complete, and you want to be complete very much. So you say, I am sovereign. I need someone. I am attracted to someone. Oh no, I cannot look. I am too frightened of that. I don't need anyone. I do need someone. You go back and forth. Learn to still your mind. Learn to become completely in charge of your energy. What does that mean? It means that wherever you are, you observe yourself, how your body is positioned, how you are using your hands, whether you are repeating yourself over and over again, whether you are speaking or silent. Learn to watch yourself with no judgment. Learn to watch and self-correct by determining how you would like to be versus how you are. Learn to quiet your mind. When I came onto this path, I wasn't aware of the filters my expectations had created at the time. That was probably because I was still operating under the ego at the time, as I had yet to put it aside. My ego did a good job of convincing me of things in my mind and then left me with the residual ego habits to clean up afterwards. Anyway, I was excited about Soika work and becoming more connected with my Soika, yet the more I worked, the less it was like how I expected it to be, as I touched on before. Some of the things I saw in myself and in my potential disturbed me and I resented them, but what I eventually realized was that what I was actually giving up to my ego habits was my own power that I kept labeling as bad or wrong due to my indoctrinated moral beliefs, i.e., filters. So our programming affects this thought process as well, which is why it's important that we need to question everything in our minds. Next to the rationalization process was the compartmentalization. I think we all heard how we can't fit any of this stuff into boxes, yet that is exactly what compartmentalization does. When the walls of compartmentalization fall apart, things start to piece together more easily for you to see and grope the bigger picture. I found that when the compartmentalization process began to crumble, I was able to experience more realizations and insight to the point that it was overwhelming. What compartmentalization does is create the cognitive boxes in our heads, and the rationalization process decides where things go and into which boxes. Rationalization and compartmentalization are not inherently bad, but under the ego or ego habits, they can hinder understanding because it keeps things separate in our minds from comprehending the larger picture, or being able to figure out how the pieces fit together that we need to put together for greater understanding and growth. It creates a tunnel vision which keeps us locked with limited perception, and it acts as a barrier that impedes your Soika from being able to work more with you. As an addendum, how many of you were wondering how the segments about relationships in the Bringers of the Dawn quote pertained to what I'm trying to convey in my message? The truth is, human relationships don't have much to do with anything at all in regards to my message. It's about building and establishing a relationship or connection with your own Soika. I left that part in there as an example of how the compartmentalization process can work, or how the mind can lock onto certain things in the message and then completely overlook the pertinent part of the message. The chapter I borrowed this quote from was originally about sexuality and may have seemed like it's been taken out of its original context, but the message still applies because it is our relationship, for lack of a better expression, with our own Soika. That is what this entire work is about. That is how the message from Bringers of the Dawn still applies to what I'm conveying here. I know this because this is the type of thinking and mental habits I had to break to truly realize in order to gain a genuine understanding of the larger picture and of myself. These are the baby steps one begins to take towards spherical thinking and removing ourselves from our own cognitive boxes. This is an example of stretching our perceptions and learning how to think and see bigger and break the habit of compartmentalizing everything. And yes, this is very challenging. What I had difficulty learning on this path was realizing that conscious action can only be followed by conscious thought, knowing, in order to attain your intent. In order to move off the thinking train that goes nowhere, conscious thought must always follow conscious action, and that is how we start tearing down the mental barriers to attain our Soikas, regardless of whatever work area it is. When stepping off into the abyss, we are afraid of the unknown, and the unknown is none other than our very own selves, our own Soika. As the Bringers of the Dawn quote said, we are afraid of ourselves because we don't know who or what we are becoming, and this scares our ego mind. I'm realizing more and more now, while I was writing this script, how compartmentalization and overthinking kept me from connecting more with my own Soika, because how it made me think that it was something that was separate from me individually. But hopefully with this video, you now see or gain an insight that the fear is just a control mechanism to keep you from attaining you, because of indoctrination and programming. So until next time, keep up with the hard work on exiting the first cognition. Goodbye.